Good morning, this is Jennifer Disney, and I'm happy to be here interviewing Ann Porcher Perrin. She is sitting with her daughter, Ann Flynn, who we just had the wonderful opportunity to interview as well. So it's beautiful to have a mother-daughter team, since we're here to talk about womanhood and motherhood and those kinds of topics. So thank you very much for being here with us today.
Well, thank you for asking me.
Would you start by telling us when and where you were born and raised?
Well, I was born on a farm in Orangeburg, South Carolina, 8 miles out from Orangeburg in the country, which was a very happy life for me as a child because Daddy had a dairy and he was a master farmer, and I was brought up with a lot of help around, and I just had a real easy childhood, and with lots of animals. I knew all about animals. We just, it just that my friends did not have the opportunity to have, and they'd come out. We horses and cows, just having a wonderful time growing up, and it was just all I can remember is just being a very happy child.
That's wonderful. Tell us a little bit more, anything else you want to share about your family and your early childhood experiences?
Well, I had one brother, and just the two of us, a year and 10 months older than I am. And I don't know what else you wanted me to say. What do you mean about?
Anything about growing up, your education, schools you went to?
Well, I went to Cordova schools. My father was a trustee of the school. And so Jack and I went to grammar school there. And then when it came to junior high school, I went to Coke, South Carolina, which had a junior high school. And my brother went to Orangeburg to high school. And when I got to high school, I went to Orangeburg to high school. But I had a real active life as growing up with, taking dancing lessons and doing all that, and being in the band at the school. Jack played football. We went to every football game, and Daddy wasn't too hot about me being head majorette because of that little short skirt I had to wear. But anyway, we got him over that, and he thought it was all right. But
she's always had great legs. Great legs.
So
I guess I was pretty much a ham. I love being head majorette.
That's wonderful.
Yeah, what?
As I said, you're telling us wonderful stories about your education, your young adult life, and continue to do that. And if you would also share with us what you remember were your dreams, your goals, and your aspirations at that time in your life.
Well, I finished Orangeburg High School, and then I went to Limestone College for 2 years because my father wouldn't allow me to go to a university. I wanted to go to Carolina. Wouldn't allow me to go to a co-ed school at first. If Clemson had been co-ed then, he would have let me go. Mm-hmm. But anyway, his sister was the trustee of Limestone, so I went to Limestone for 2 years, and after 2 years, I transferred to Carolina. I was allowed to go after 2 years. After I took a business course that Mother thought maybe I ought to learn how to support myself in case of an emergency, which I would have been very lousy at. But
don't believe that. Don't believe that.
But anyway, I went to Carolina, and that's when I met my wonderful husband. He was in law school, and I was finishing up college. And then after college, I got a job at the South Carolina retirement system as an assistant to the head of the retirement systems. I helped her. I was not too fast with shorthand and typing, but I could do it. But when they had board meetings, she was always there, thank God, because I couldn't have sat there and taken all those notes. But anyway, I had a wonderful time, and while I worked, and I lived there. I lived in a boarding house at first at Miss Mamie Melton's, who was Dean Chase's aunt across from the university. And after that, I moved in with my aunt and uncle, Thomas Howell. He was ill, and I moved in to try to help her with Uncle Tommy. They were just like second parents to me. They lived on the corner of Senate and Gregg Street in Columbia. And then I worked there for a while. And then, unfortunately, we got engaged while I was there. And then, unfortunately, Pat's father died. And I knew Mama Perrin would not come to any parties because she was going to mourn a year. You know, that was back in those days. And
did she really wear black, Mama, all year?
I don't know whether she did or not. I can't remember that, but I bet she did, knowing Mama Perrin.
I just remember you telling me that she wore black and didn't go anywhere.
And she would not go any social things. And so that's the hardest year I ever spent in my life. I don't believe in long engagements because I think it's wear and tear on your relationship. But anyway, I lasted out. It lasted, and we finally got married and had a wonderful wedding at the farm, which poured rain. Lord, Daddy and Mother had the whole yard wired with the electric lights, and then we had a downpour. My God.
Well, you did say they had to pull tractor.
Wait a minute. They were paving the road from Orangeburg to my house, and it was a living mess. Daddy had to have the tractors out to pull the people out that came to the. It was just awful. I just
But you said you hardly knew it was raining. You had such a great time in the
yeah,
house.
Mother
was
lost so much
beautiful.
weight you could put two hands down her dress because she was so upset about it. But anyway, it didn't matter to me. You know, I was just as happy as a bug in a rug. But I guess I got all the tears out of my life with all that raining. You're lucky if it rains at your wedding, I'm about to say. It rained at Ann's wedding.
Poured down rain. Auxiliary power came on at the church.
I kept thinking that they would go
Everybody
leave
stayed
and
very
people
long.
wouldn't leave it.
Stayed a long time at the reception.
But anyway, those are the kind of things we remember. They're fun things, but we lived through them, and we had a good time. We bounced back.
They lived on a beautiful piece of property outside of Orangeburg, and my grandmother's home was just lovely. So fortunately, you could handle everybody in the house, but the yard was pretty spectacular too. So.
Well, she was quite a gardener. Mother would love to garden, and she had a beautiful garden. We had a picket fence around the yard, and she had beautiful borders around the picket fence. I can remember when I got married, we had this huge gardenia bush, and I got up on a ladder and picked all the dead ones off, so it would be pretty for the reception. Then the rain came. I don't think anybody even saw the gardenia bush, but anyway, it's just we had the reception on the front porch. It had a porch that went all the way around the house. It took care of everybody that came.
That's wonderful. Tell us about the early years of your marriage and the birth of your children.
The early years of my marriage, well, Pat and I were married, and we built a little duplex. I didn't have any money, but as a teenager, I won the jackpot at the theater. I had $350. I said, Pat, I'll give you my endowment. So about $350, we went to try to build us a duplex. And we built a duplex before we were married. And it was finished, and we moved, after we came back from our honeymoon, we moved into that duplex. It's on Palmetto Street here. In fact, it's still there. And we lived there until I had Ann there, and I had Sally there. But when I was pregnant with Ed, there was no room in there anymore. So we bought another house on the corner of Fairview and Boyd, right down from Pine Street School, which was a wonderful location because all my friends bringing their children to school would stop by and have a cup of coffee. And it was just great. And they could walk to school from the house. It was a very wonderful neighborhood with children all around. They grew up with fun. And Pat's sister lived up the block from us, and her children were always there. And across the street with we just had a neighborhood full of children. And Christy Smith would always give plays. She was a teacher at Pine Street, and even as a child growing up, we'd have plays in the playhouse in the backyard. Pat and I turned one part of the garage into a playhouse, and for the girls to have plays.
It was a show place. It was a show place.
We had a great
curtains, tablecloths, napkins. Oh, you name it. Mother had it.
Well, Pat and I both loved to work in the yard. He liked to work in the yard, and I liked to work in the yard. And I can remember we were both pretty good disciplinarians. And Pat always backed me with anything I wanted to do. And I can remember one day Pat was working in the yard, and Dr. Smith across the street, my daughter Sally, was standing in the yard. And he said, "Say hello to Dr. Smith." And Sally, she didn't say it. He said, "Sally, say hello to Dr. Smith." Sally didn't say it. He said, "Well, you will just stand there until you can speak to Dr. Smith." Well, it was getting a little chilly, and I wasn't saying anything. So finally I went in the house and got a little sweater and put on Sally. And finally she said, "Hello, Dr. Smith." And Pat said, "What did you say?" She said, "Hello, Dr. Smith." He said, "Say it again." "Hello, Dr. Smith." By this time, Dr. Smith had gone. But anyway, he stood there till she said it. It's just isn't it funny how little things like that you remember?
Yes, that's important for parenting.
Yeah, but
If Sally was here, I'd say something, but I'm not. I'd rub it in a little bit, but I'm not going to do that.
oh God.
Well, you're already talking about many of the activities you were involved in. So if there's anything else you want to share, activities you were involved in both before and after you were married in terms of family, community, education, employment.
I was always a class mother, and I did volunteer work with the Junior League. And in the church, I taught Sunday school for all 5 years while my children were in Sunday school. Was head of the elementary department. Was at growing up, and Pat was the youngest deacon in the Presbyterian church, and we just have always been very involved with church activities and the community, because Pat thought you ought to give back to your community, and hopefully we brought up our children to do the same thing, and I think they have and have continued to be. But we had a wonderful life with our children. We'd go to the beach and the lake in the summer. We taught them to water ski at Lake Bowen, where Ann now has a home. We didn't have a boat, but Pat's brother Buck was a fisherman, and he had a boat, and he gave us a key to the boat. And we bought skis and would take them on the weekend and teach them how to water ski. And we just had a grand time with that, and did that a lot. And
one thing you skipped over, and I really want you to talk about this a little bit.
What?
Mother was very involved with the arts in
Yeah.
Spartanburg. She thought arts were really important to education. She was, as she
Yeah.
said, involved in everything. She was Girl Scout leader. She was head of my Girl Scout troop for as long as I can remember. And you were in Girl Scouts till you went to high school. She took us to all our activities and every swim meet.
Oh,
that I was
gosh,
in
swim
all
meets.
over a
Anne was
four-state
quite a
region.
swimmer, and we went to you ever sat in a swim meet? I mean, she was a,
But the other, in her 40s, she was diagnosed with breast cancer. And she became a strong advocate for the Breast Cancer Association in Spartanburg and went to call on people in the hospital. And you have done that now for close to 40 years.
yeah.
So, I mean, she's been very active in that.
Well, I was blessed. I was caught it in the very beginning, and just got along fine. I've been blessed with in that care.
Congratulations on being a survivor and going on
And
to
I beg
help
your
other women. I just say congratulations on being a survivor and going on to help other women
Well,
in that situation.
I was a survivor because I had a good doctor, and he got it all. And you know, it was. I can't remember being so uncomfortable with it, but I had known several ladies who had had breast cancer and went places without prosthesis. And I thought, God, that is just awful. I guess I'm vain. So on the way back from the hospital, I said, Pat, stop it, R.W. Smith. I'm going to get a prosthesis. And the lady they was fitting for, she said, Miss Perrin, this is awful early. I said, I don't care how early it is, I want a prosthesis or a bra that I can wear prosthesis in. And so I, from the very beginning, started with that. And I would go call on people, and because I think it's really important to maintain your life and your ability to do things as quickly as possible. And Pat was such a supporter. He really, you would have thought I was still just the most wonderful person in the world. Nothing, I never felt that I was cheated of anything because of him.
That's beautiful. I love that. Thank you for sharing that. It's really important.
Chemotherapy did not exist when she had this, and they did radiation, and the
They
radiation
did not have
was
chemo.
very extensive, and it's almost like being burned. So she started the radiation very early, and one of my earliest memories is Dad taking her to a basketball game to see my brother play, and people were coming up to hug her, but she was so raw from the
burned.
radiation.
In fact, I had a spot that would not heal for a long time. And I went back to the doctor, and I told him, I said, he said, well, we'll do a skin graft. I said, no, give God a little more time. He's working on it. And he's working on me, and he's working on it. Well, and it did. It finally healed, and it was just got great. But people don't realize, when you have radiation, it saps your energy, and you get so exhausted. But that's the only thing that I can remember that was so terrible about it. I was so blessed because our minister at the time had cancer, and I'd go for radiation, and he was ahead of me, and that's Dr. Pogue. And just before we'd go in for my we both have a little prayer. So he got me through all of that. So the Lord was sitting on my shoulder the whole way through. I would have been blessed.
Wow, what a story. Thank you for sharing that.
Well,
There's one other huge thing that Mother did, and she did this much later in her life. She chaired a committee that brought a full Carolina bells to First Presbyterian Church bell tower. And we in our family finally call this the 5 years of the bells. And so if you see my mother coming to ask you for a donation, you just better pull out your checkbook and write, because she can get you to write a check quicker than anybody I know. But that is another story that has led to many things, not only with my children, but with our family. My parents went to the Picard Foundry in France and met the family, the Van Bergens, and they came here.
And we, as a committee, we drove all over everywhere that had bells. What's the hotel that has the ducks? That Hope Andrews was from there. And
In Michigan?
no, They said that it has ducks that always come out. I forgotten anyway. But they had the complete bells, and so we went to hear those. And then that's when Pat said, "Abe Shay," when we ordered the bell, he said, "Let's go to France and just see how they're being made." So we did, and the guy from Charles, owned the company, had us out and
Van Bergen, Mr. Van Bergen.
yeah, Mr. Van, and he said it took us through the factory, and we saw it was just really interesting, and we had a great, and when they came, the bells were so exciting. They came in, they're huge bells, they just huge, weighed tons of. It was just quite a thing for the church. It was.
And on the little e-bell are my mother's initials that the church did.
Oh,
So,
that's wonderful.
but it's just how your family becomes really involved in what you're doing. It becomes important to you. And through the years, so many things have happened because of those bells. And when my daughter got married, my husband and I are Episcopalian, and our churches are right next to each other. And when my daughter, after they were exiting the church, the Carolina at First Pres and the Carolina at the Advent did an antiphonal response to the reception when everybody left in honor of my parents. So all of these things that you do as a family and you commit to as a family come back in so many ways to you, not only through your church, but through your community and through other people.
That's a beautiful segue to my next question, which is to ask you, what does motherhood mean to you?
What's what?
What does motherhood and being a mother mean to you?
Being a mother was God's greatest gift. To me, I get really emotional. Your family and your children are your greatest blessings. And I have wonderful children. I never had any problems with them in high school. My friends did. They had lots of problems. Pat and I did not have problems. If we had them, we handled them at home. But we did not have drug problems. We did not have drinking problems. We did not have so many that our friends had.
Well, you didn't disobey mom or daddy. It wasn't worth the consequence if you did. So.
Yeah.
And they had eyes in the back of their head. They knew what you were doing when you thought they didn't.
Well, we didn't. We didn't have eyes in the back of our head.
Yes,
But
you did.
we had friends that knew that if we were doing something, they could tell me. I can never will forget when Louise Hodge told me she saw you at some little place
Title house.
Title's house at something like 3:00 in the morning, and I thought.
I spent the night out.
She
with
was
some-
spending the night out with a little girl who I did not know, which I didn't usually let Ann do. I didn't let Ann spend the night with anybody that I did not know. But Ann was so crazy about this little girl. And so I called the mother, and she said, yes, it'll be all right. I said, well, she could come that night. And that was the night that she was at the Tuttle House or wherever it was.
Busted.
And I don't know how she got it. You could remember it better than I did. But she didn't go back to that house again. I didn't. I said, she can come to your house, but you're not going to hers again. Because her mother wasn't there, and they were out at some ridiculous hour of the night.
It was past my bedtime.
Oh my God, it was terrible. It's just like, oh gosh, I'm not going to get into that.
Great. It's a beautiful parenting story. I love that you shared that. How did you become a member of the South Carolina Mother of the Year Association and Selection Committee?
I do not know who nominated me. I really don't know how I got on it. I was blessed to be on it because I thoroughly enjoyed it. Thing about it is, back then when you got on the Mother's Committee, people stayed on it. They stayed on it too long. They really need young people. And some of them, when I got on the committee, half of the committee had been on it for years and years and years. And it got so that the younger ones were doing all the work. Not that we minded, but the others didn't have time, or they weren't, I don't know what it was. But so I made up my mind that, after I had done what I could do for the committee, that I would get off and give a younger mother a chance. I can remember Ann asking me to be chairman. I said, Ann,
No, not my Ann Edwards.
yeah,
Ann Edwards.
Ann Edwards being me to be chair of the Mother's Committee. I said, Ann, I am not a leader. I'm a good Indian, but I am not a leader. And we were having a lot of problems with the
The national organization.
national law. And I said, but I tell you what, I'll be secretary, and I'll do the minutes of everything, and I'll do that. Well, that was a chore too, because these women can get off on a tangent. But I would take a tape recorder and tape the meetings and do that. But I was blessed to get Gwen Howell to be on the committee. I mean, I got her on that. She's good. I knew she'd be good. And they were blessed to have my daughter because she was really good.
Tell us about
She a lot better than her mother was.
I don't know about that.
I is poor mother that can't improve on herself. And I did that with all my children.
Oh, it's beautiful. It's beautiful. Tell us about your service on that committee. And I hear great stories about the teas at the governor's mansion. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Well,
experience?
and I did whatever they told me to do. I did the flowers one year. I did the catering one year, but Callie Winges, I think, finally just ended up by doing it every year because that was her little niche that she liked to do. And Callie was a good friend of mine, and Lib Ushery.
Live Lafitte.
Huh?
Live Lafitte.
Yeah, Lafitte. She was a good friend of mine at Carolina. She was on the committee. I don't know, maybe they recommended me. I don't know who recommended me. But anyway, we had a great time.
Well, we had
And they probably needed somebody from the up country. And I was from the up country and to be on the committee. But anyway.
Fannie Louise Holcomb was Mother of the Year
And I proposed.
from Spartanburg when Mother was on that committee, and they did a lovely reception here in Spartanburg for her too.
Yeah.
So Mother was really involved with Miss Holcomb.
Yeah.
And it really helps to have women from different regions of the state because there are so many capable women. So if you only have them concentrated in one area, you miss out on a lot of options. But she modestly does flowers. She did have her own floral business. So
Well, I didn't really have a floral business. I was kind of I got in kind of by the back door. I have a next door neighbor who's like a surrogate daughter to me, and we were all of a sudden we were always doing flowers for my friend. They were having a party. I had roses. I said, I'll be glad to do your flower. And then all of a sudden I realized I was spending money on doing everybody else's flower. And I was talking to Betty one day, and she said, well, let's start our own business. And so we did. And we paid this designer from Birmingham to come give us classes in her garage. And we picked all this green to teach us how to do. Well, after we had done several things, I said, well, help me. She said, I don't have to teach you. You know how to do that. Well, my mother, growing up in the country, taught me how to arrange flowers. I could make big arrangements because we had 12-foot ceilings at our house. I couldn't make little teeny design arrangements. I wasn't good at that. But anyway, we had a good time, and we did weddings. We did the church, and we
Country club.
country club. We did the reception. We didn't
BMW.
I when BMW. But I forgot about that. When BMW came in, walking across those fields, that man, it was just such a joke.
Now, this is long after I've left home, and I mean, Mother's she's older than me when she started doing this. So,
And
she's given a pint of blood. Get in line. You want to.
and the thing about it is, Betty and June, they were so talented. Betty could do anything with color. June could do anything with ribbons and things. But you had to fight to get the prettiest flowers, because as we were doing arrangements, we always wanted the prettiest flowers. Of course, the prettiest flowers make the prettiest arrangements. But anyway, we had a grand time doing that. It was fun going to market. Except then you appreciate people in business. But you go to market, you've got to create credit. And we were trying to buy things to decorate for Converse College, because we represent in the country club. But you have to buy so much of something before you can build up a credit. And between Betty and June and I had 2 daughters with just getting married and started. I said, well, I can buy some of that for them. I can give them half of that for their Christmas. They were doing half of that. We were just to build up our credit. So finally we got so we could build up our credit, and so we could buy what we wanted to buy without.
She did give the best Christmas present.
Anyway, we had it, but it was a lot of fun. We did that for about, I think, 9 years, didn't it? But it's a lot of work. You don't appreciate flower arrangement till you do it. You have to go out and pick them. You have to treat them in water so they'll live, and they have to sit there. It's just until you do it. It's just like anything in life. Until you do it, walk in somebody else's shoes, you don't appreciate what they do.
That's exactly right.
But anyway, flower arranging and florist, I give them a lot of credit.
And you served on the committee, I think, for 15 years, the South Carolina Mother Association Committee. I know you interacted with a lot of other committee members, a lot of the Mothers of the Year, and all these amazing women. How did that experience impact you, your family, your community, your time serving on the Mother of the Year Association?
I don't remember how it impacted me, except that
I remember her talking about the mothers and what exceptional mothers and what they had done.
It was such a hard decision to when you get all these women who are so capable and have done so much, and you want to pick the right one. It's quite a responsibility, I think, being on the committee. If you give it a lot of, if you really work at it.
The South Carolina Society would allow an application to be viable for 3 years. So you didn't, if you submitted, if an application was submitted and someone's recommended, they could be chosen for up to 3 years. So sometimes you may have such a large number, you may have been looking from, you tried to keep it from different areas. So if you had somebody maybe from the lower state, you could look at somebody from the upper, and then you could always go back with somebody else. But you were trying to be equally distributed. But it was a tough decision.
I'm sure it was a very different
Very
conversation.
hard.
It was.
Very hard.
But it was fun, and it was great to see the families and how much when they came to the governors, house and for the reception. It meant so much to them. It really did. And it was a lovely thought and thing, I think, for South Carolina to do. But
Well,
they-
Ann Edwards really
Oh,
put that
Ann
into
Edwards
place.
is-
And if Ann Edwards picks up the phone and calls you,
You
you
do
just
it.
might as well say, yes, what do you want me to do? And what else is there? What else do you have on your list? But I don't know a governor that turned her down, and they were there, greeted the guest, and so did their wife.
Great. I love that story. Let me ask you a few questions, more broader questions about women in society. What do you think are the most important issues facing women today?
I think the greatest issue facing women is supporting family and job. I mean, I think it would be awfully hard. I didn't have that. But now it seems like both have to work. I was blessed. I never worked. I was blessed to have good health all my life. And my children were well taken care of. But I was always home. And I think we didn't have the daycare facilities that they have now that are so wonderful. Some of them are so wonderful. Of course, there was a time when they went through a lot getting where they are today. I think it's really great that there's such restrictions and things that you have to have if you're taking care of children. It's so important that they have the right help and education growing up.
You talked so beautifully, you predicted my next question about that balance. How difficult it is for women to balance work inside the home, work outside the home. And you feel like when you were coming up, you were able to balance.
Oh yeah, I
Because
was able to balance because I had help. I could work at the church, and I knew that my children were safe, and I could check on them every day. It wasn't like I was leaving them for days at a time. I mean, I was in and out all the time. I had no problem with that. But I would think today's family, it would be hard to balance that. Unless you had, because babysitters are expensive. I can remember when my girls used to babysit, and they were good. And I said, now, Aim Shay, when you babysit, make sure you clean up, you pick up, you don't just let everything happen. I can remember we gave her a car.
Talking about me. You said Abe Shea, you mean Ann Tatum.
Ann Tatum. I didn't want the fathers driving my child home after they had been drinking. So when we gave them the car, I said, just go up on your babysit. Well, they were afraid to go up on their babysit because they were something like getting 50 cents an hour.
Yeah.
And I thought, go up and say, don't come pick me up and you won't have to bring me home. I said, that ought to be worth another 50 cents.
that's right.
And I liked the idea because I didn't like the idea of somebody been drinking, bringing my child home.
That's right.
And I knew my child wouldn't be drinking.
That's right.
But anyway, it's just.
Do you think women's work and women's roles as mothers are adequately recognized by society today?
No, I really don't think it is actually, but it's getting better. It's getting better. I don't think women should be into everything, but I do think if you are a capable woman, that you should be overlooked in a job because you're a woman. Mm-hmm. If there's a man ahead of you and you can do as well as a man, I think you should be able to have that position. But anyway.
That connects well with my next question, which is, what does feminism mean to you?
That word.
Well, that's beautiful. When you hear that word, what does it
I
make
really
you
don't
think
know
of?
that I'm a feminist. I believe in equal rights and equal education and equal liberties for all, but I'm not. I don't particularly like the word feminist, but
I hear
Southern feminists, I use that term. Gentle feminists.
No, it's true. A lot of people say, I believe in women's equal rights, but I'm not a feminist. I'm not a feminist, but I think that word has had a negative connotation for many generations, and I think it's starting to change. I think it's changing. But you feel very strongly that women should have equal rights in employment, and you wanted the best for your daughters as for your sons, and it sounds like you're very sympathetic to working households when women and men both have to work, and how women are able to balance work outside the home and mothering and work inside the home and the community. So you seem to me that you hold a lot of the values that might be associated with feminism, even if that word is not the right word.
well, maybe so.
Is there anything else you'd like to share with us, or any questions you'd like to ask about motherhood, womanhood, Southern feminism, anything you want to share?
Now, what are you going to do with this interview, and why are you doing this?
That's a great question. I am the director of the Women's and Gender Studies program at Winthrop University. And Martha Cranford and Shirley Fishburne first approached me when they were going to do the 70-year, kind of the anniversary book and celebration of the Mother of the Year Award Committee. And so it started with the book. And then we said, you know what, let's do an oral history project. Let's create an oral history archives. And so we've established at the Louise Pettis Archives at Winthrop University, we have the South Carolina Mother of the Year Award archives. And so many women have given us written documents, photos, pictures. So we want to have a historical record of the women and mothers who have done the great work that you guys have done around the state, selecting the mothers, being mothers yourselves. And we want to create a video archive of these conversations, these interviews. They'll be available on the internet. We have something called Digital Commons at Winthrop University. So people will be able to go to Winthrop University, click on Louise Pettis Archives, click on South Carolina Mother of the Year Oral History Project, and they can watch this video. And it's good for future generations of women. We see it both as kind of documenting the historical record and as research, so that younger generations of women can learn from your wisdom and your experience, and how women through the generations have been able to care for their families, be leaders in their families, leaders in their churches, their communities, and that kind of thing. So we hope it'll be an instructive research tool and just kind of knowledge, just to gain that knowledge and wisdom and have this kind of conversation across the generations of women.
There's one little thing as you were talking, I was thinking about women and marriage and husbands. When my dad would come home every afternoon, shortly before my dad would come home, my mother would go back to her dressing room and she'd do her hair and put on lipstick. And we always said, why are you doing this? And she would say, your dad's had a long day and I need to look good when he comes home. So he always wants to come home. And it's funny how the things your mother says, and she always looked good. She never goes to the grocery store after she's been working in the yard and looking terrible. You never see her when she just doesn't look elegant. You could be a movie star mother because they never catch you
That's not true.
not well coiffed. And as her daughter, that's one thing I aspire to, not to be caught in the grocery store with no makeup and my hair not fixed.
Well, at least I didn't go to the grocery store in my tennis clothes like I have friends did. I thought that was terrible. And I'm not a prudish. I don't think I'm a prude. But I mean, I think at a certain age, you don't wear your tennis clothes to the grocery store.
You know what else I'd like
But,
to
you
say? Your daughter spoke eloquently about the role model that you and your husband were as mothers and fathers, and as a partnership, as a true husband-wife partnership. And that's really important to this story, is women having supportive men in their lives. She's tried to emulate in her parenting and with her children what you and your husband kind of model for how to be just great parents and a great family and a great husband-wife partnership. So I wanted you to know that.
Well, it's
Well, when you have a mother like Anne Porcher Zeigler, Perrin, she's part of your soul. She lives within in you, and no matter where you go and what you do, she's there.
That's beautiful. How does that make you feel to hear that, to hear your daughter say that?
well, she's always said wonderful things that I don't always deserve.
You seem very modest, Anne Porcher, too modest.
No, not really.
She is. She doesn't toot her own horn very well.
Well, my horn hadn't been very long. I didn't have much to toot over.
That's not true. That's not true. She'll say she didn't work, but she did work, and everything she did, she signed her signature with excellence in everything she did.
That's an important point. What women do hasn't always been considered work. If it wasn't for a wage, if it wasn't outside the home in that more traditional sense.
Well, you know, it's
women are
just
always
like
working.
I didn't worry about who my girls were going to marry because I figured I had set standards for them that they would abide by. But I worried about Ed. I thought some little hussy is going to get him and ruin his life. So I was very particular about Ed, and I never will forget the night Ed wasn't home, and I thought he should have been home. No? And we had when you walked down the hall, Ed's room was right next to ours, and we had if you stepped on a bow that squeaked. Well, that Pat would go to sleep, but I never went to sleep until Ed got home. And he was late that home one night. I said, Ed, where have you been? You don't stay out this late. I said, you don't stay out this late at night. He was in college now. He was a grown man. I said, I don't give a. I thought, I don't. I'm no fool. I knew what could go on, and I didn't want him to be caught in something he couldn't handle. I said, don't ever get yourself in a position with something you have to.
But when he did make the selection, he did very well.
He did.
We couldn't have done better if we had handpicked her
I've
ourselves.
got to have a clean hand.
I'm sorry, Mommy. And sometimes my sister and I keep thinking, well, we think she's loving Linda a little bit more than she's loving on us.
No.
I say that in jest, but we have been fortunate that
We
the
have.
people our siblings married have been special, not only with our children and our grandchildren, but with my siblings. And Ed married a Texas girl, and she took him to Texas, and we never got him back, but he comes back to visit a whole lot, and so does his wife.
I think it goes back to the strong foundation that you laid as parents, as family, the values, the discipline. That's all. It's important, and it's important for future generations to remember that. I think when we're raising our children. So I cannot thank you enough for sharing your time with us today.
Well, thank you. I hope I've been some help. I don't.
Absolutely. And again, is there anything else you'd like to share? Any other questions or any comments that you have?
I want to
for us?
thank you for having the
Yeah.
opportunity to sit next to my mother in my own home and talk about her and her influence in my life and how she impacted me. As I said, I wanted to grow up to be Anne Porcher Perrin, and not quite there yet, but I'm working on it.
There's no better testament to motherhood than what you just said, and to have a mother-daughter team interview like this. It just means the world to me. So thank you both so much. Really.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.